Hi, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you caught the last episode where I talked about how to make money when you buy and not when you sell. In this episode, I was going to share with you some of the things you could do, some of the interventions that we ourselves make to increase the value of a property that you could do as well when you're buying land. But I need to mention one other thing before I get into that. So stay tuned. You're watching Own Land in Kenya. I'm Solomon Wangwe. So, one of the other great ways to make money when you buy, rather than waiting until you sell to make money. And when I say make money, what I'm really talking about is increasing value or your equity. Your equity is simply the difference between what it cost you and what you can get out of it. Whether or not you've sold or not, that space, that gap is what we call equity. So that's what I mean when I say make money when you buy, not when you sell. You need to have some good equity going in. Instead of waiting for time to pass for that equity to grow, you can create that equity when you're going in. And one of the other great ways to do that is to buy in volumes. That's what we as land traders do. It's one of the great ways that we can remain profitable while still leaving money on the table for you as a buyer. Because let's face it, if we're going to wait until the value is maximized so that you can pay us top dollar for it, we're going to be waiting a long time, which is great. As a business, we have a real need to cycle in and out of investments, right? And so the onus is on us to buy as cheaply as possible going in so that we can sell to you while still leaving equity or money on the table for you. If you're buying something that doesn't leave money on the table for you, I propose to you it's not the best investment. You should always make money when you buy instead of having to wait until you sell, because that period of time could be very long. And the shortest amount of time you can make that possible, the better off you are and the more viable the investment. And that's what we specialize in. We buy big. So if, using the last example, if this piece of land costs $1 million shillings at the market rate now, chances are very high that I can buy it for much less. And how much less will simply depend on your negotiation skills and the seller's motivation to sell now as opposed to later. Is by buying in volumes. So if I can tell the seller, listen, you have 100 acres, I don't want to just buy an acre. Can you sell me 50 acres? Instead of me paying you $1 million shillings per acre, I'll give you 700,000 shillings per acre. That means I have just increased my equity instantly. The seller has a motivation to do that because they make more money instantly as opposed to waiting a long drawn period of time to make the $1 million shillings. Because technically speaking, he may have to sell 50 times. If he's gonna sell 50 acres at 1 acre portions, he'll have to do that 50 times to make his 50 million, if we're using that as an example. But if he sells to me the entire 50 acres in one fell swoop at 700,000, that's basically, 35 million shillings he gets now, as opposed to waiting a year or 2 years or however long it may possibly take for him to make his 50. There's a famous saying in the financial circles that, a shilling in my hand today is worth more than 10 shillings next week. Why? Because I can grow that 1 shilling beyond the 10 shillings in the next week by simply having that resource in my hands. So there's a real motivation for land sellers to sell you cheaper if you buy in volumes. And that's one great way to make money when you buy. It is the primary way that entities like our own, and anyone who tells you differently that sells land may not be genuine, it's one of the main ways we rely on making a profit while still leaving value on the table for you, right? So for those of you who wonder about, so you're selling land in Nanyuki for 1.89 million shillings, how did you arrive at that price? Well, different factors. We bought, 5.5 years ago for much less than 1.89, because in Kenya and most parts of the world, the passage of time alone increases the value of land. Barring some catastrophic event or the dissolution of a government, if you're in Sarajevo during the war, or in Somalia where you can't buy and invest in land, in general, land never loses value. So the passage of time alone should suggest to you that we didn't pay 1.89 million shillings for that land. We bought it for much less. We have paid the price in time to be able to sell it to you for more. But because we buy in volumes, that should just suggest to you that we paid even lower than the market rate 5 years ago, which was much less than 1.89 million shillings. So you can quickly see how it is possible for a company like us to sell you land and still make a profit without fleecing you or making you pay too much, right? And I hope that makes sense to you. Secondly, we're right next to a neighbor who's planning a huge development, supposed to be like Laikipia's first 18-hole championship golf course and country homes estate. In 2014, they sold half-acre plots for 3.5 million shillings. So someone may ask me, why are you selling your acres for 1.89 and not 7 million shillings? Because your neighbor is selling for 3.5. Why are you selling so cheap? What's the deal? Well, we have a motivation to sell now as opposed to later. And remember, we bought 5.5 years ago, not only for less, but for significantly lower than the market rate because we bought in volumes. I've shared that already. And so we can make a profit while still leaving value on the table for you as a buyer. So it's not difficult for you to see how your 1.89 million shillings for an acre today could very easily turn into 3 or 4 or 5 million shillings over the next 3 to 5 years, simply because already your neighbor has sold for effectively what is 7 million shillings per acre. So we leave value on the table for you so that you're making money when you're buying, not when you're selling. It's a very simple thing. It's one of the things that people struggle to understand and can also cause suspicion about pricing. You can also do valuations to determine that whenever possible, but these are some of the thought processes that go into making decisions about where to invest. Thank you so much for watching. I hope those tidbits help. If you have any comments to make or questions that you'd like us to address, please feel free to share them. You can reach out to us on our YouTube channel after you subscribe, of course. You can send us an email to enquiry@goshenacquisitions.com. You can even give us a call directly at 0700010001. Again, that's 0700010001. You've been watching Own Land in Kenya. I'm Solomon Wangwe. Stay tuned for more information on strategic land investment.